Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we return to our two-part Predator retrospective with the brand new 2018 Shane Black film, The Predator. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, co-author of California Tiki, out now from the History Press. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist to the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin is Mr. Drew Edwards, the creator of the long-running indie comic Halloween Man, and out from Comixology and Sugar Skull Media, the recent Lucy Chaplin Science Starlet Special. Say hello, Drew.
One beautiful motherfucker this week.
Yes, yes, that was the most profound change from the previous movie. All right, and chuckling from the Rio Grande Valley, Professor David Bowles, who has received awards from the American Library Association, the Texas Institute of Letters, and the Texas Associated Press to the dozen books he's written. He's recently added Feathered Serpent, Dark Heart of Sky, Myths of Mexico, and very soon the YA steampunk graphic novel Clockwork Curandera. Say hello, Mr. David.
Yes, I'll use a little bit of that reverse psychology and say, don't go fuck yourself.
Right. Oh God, I don't even know where to start. Okay, I cannot wait to discuss this film. Okay, The Predator is a 2018 American science fiction action movie. Is that what it is? Directed by
Train
Shane
wreck.
Black. Yes, and written. Well, you know what? And we might be unfair. Who knows? Okay, a 2018 American science fiction action, I would say also horror film directed by Shane Black, written by Black and Fred Decker. It is the fourth installment in the Predator film series, the first since 2010. It stars Boyd Holbrook, Trevante Rhodes, Jacob Tremblay, Keegan-Michael Key, Olivia Munn, Thomas Jane, the Punisher is in this, Alfie Allen, and Sterling K. effing Brown, and follows a group of PTSD soldiers who must fight off an invading pair of predators. This is a big film. It's one that a lot of people have been anticipating. I mixed up the order from last week. Let's mix it up a little bit. Julia's not with us. It's a bunch of guys, so hopefully the audience can tell us apart. Let's go. Tony.
Hopefully we
Drew,
can recreate the machismo of the original part of the movie.
It's our sausage fest reflects their sausage fest.
Yes, indeed.
I've already got my chain gun ready.
All right.
I'm running for governor, just so you know. All right, let's go. Tony, Drew, David, and then I'll go. Tony, opening thoughts. I am dying to know what you thought of The Predator.
I think mixed bag really sums it up. Like, there's a lot of cool Predator things and some really great callbacks to the original. If you're like, oh man, they did that. But there's also a lot of stuff in addition to some really not cool things going on behind the scenes, which we may or may not get to. But just in general, yeah, lots of cool action. When there's practical effects, that stuff looks great. When there's CG, oh man, some of it's good, some of it's really not. Better than the last Predator movie that I saw, I think. Well, I guess Predators was okay. I keep coming back to the Aliens versus Predator one that I saw, where there's a part with like a hospital and stuff, and that one was pretty damn bad. But that one sticks out in my mind. I don't even really remember much of Predators. But yeah, I don't know. It's not. I'd still rather watch 2, but there's some fun action stuff, and people in the theater I was in, liked a lot of the same things I did. There's some really great carnage. I will have to say, give it up for the people doing the action scenes. That stuff's still solid gold.
All right, very good. So mixed bag. I don't know yet what the budget on this was compared with what its box office will be, because it really just opened, so we don't know.
The budget is allegedly $88 million. It is the most expensive movie in this franchise,
and it's made $55 million so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
So if it clears it in 2 weeks, that's not bad for a. But so my point is not a complete flop. So we can discuss it as though it is a reasonable success. So whatever attack we have on it, it's not going to be a box office one. Tony, Drew next. What did you think of The Predator?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to compartmentalize the way I saw this movie and how it might have affected my judgment, even though first of all, I watched and read no press about this. I wanted to go completely blind, with the exception of I crammed all of the Predator sequels, like all of them.
Awesome.
Over the last week. So I did that, but I didn't read anything about it. I didn't know anything about the controversy. Because Jamie and I are going to be out of town during my birthday, we had my birthday party last night, and the way we saw this movie, literally my birthday party left the restaurant we were at, and we went to the movie theater, and we took up an entire row at this movie theater in South Austin, and it was rowdy and it was fun, and everybody was screaming and throwing their cups, and it was like being a teenager. So that was really fun. As a fan of this franchise, and I am a fan of these movies. I like them all to varying degrees. I am also with Tony that I felt like this was kind of a mixed bag. I think the practical effects, which is always why I come to these movies, are excellent. I love seeing the practical monster effects. I feel like the CGI looked really bad in a lot of places. It looked really good in some, but when it looked bad, it looked really bad. I feel like this movie references, like, I feel like the strength of this as a franchise is that literally basically every one of these movies could be the first one. Like, you don't have to actually have seen the previous Predator movie to go into them. Like, the only really carryover is the creatures themselves. This movie is not like that. This movie has a lot of references to the previous movies. And actually a lot more to the Robert Rodriguez produced one from a few years ago than I was expecting. And I did enjoy it. It has a lot of cool gore. It has a lot of cool action. Because it's a Shane Black script, there's a lot of really funny lines. I enjoyed the fact that they had characters with mental illnesses as the protagonists. The cast was fun. I like the fact that it was set on Halloween. That all being said, I did enjoy this movie. It is my least favorite Predator sequel, excluding the Alien Versus films, which are hot garbage. But if I were ranking the movies, it would be Predator, Predators, Predator 2, then The Predator. So and again, these movies are all very fresh on my mind. Enjoyable movie, not perfect, and I will get into what I didn't like about it when we start discussing, and I will defend the stuff I did like about it.
Sounds good. That sounds fantastic. David, where are you landing here?
No, I'm with these guys. It's a mixed bag. I really enjoyed the way the team came together, the banter among the men, their kind of messed up past, and the way McKenna kind of like brings them together and they become, like a team by the end. That was all really, really cool. I did not, setting aside special effects, stuff like that. And I enjoyed the same thing that Drew and the thing that I didn't like was all the tropey, so I don't like seeing children put in danger for some reason. I just think it's like just way too, I don't know. It's too easy of a thrill, and it's just not fun. I wasn't particularly a fan of it, back with like Hard Boiled, the John Woo movie that happens in a hospital and puts all these like babies in danger. And I wasn't really in favor of it here either. And the trope of the autistic kid who is like this, super genius and like saves the day, that was like, it's just overdone. And the kid's a good actor and he had some funny lines, but just overall that whole subplot just, it didn't do it for me. And then the other thing was that I felt like I was watching, which Hulk movie was it that had like the Hulk dogs? Which one was Ang Lee is an exceptional filmmaker, but that film, no, I'm sorry.
No, I agree. That is not Ang Lee's finest hour.
So the whole thing with the Predator dogs, I don't think they were particularly well executed. It was too cutesy, like having a kid, having the dogs, but also being like hyper vulgar. Like to me, it's just like it's an ugly combination. I don't enjoy it. When I with this kind of a Shane Black script with like really really disgusting humor, and that's hilarious, but it's just like over the top and stuff like that. I don't want kids and dogs involved for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I'm a father, maybe I'm a fuddy duddy or whatever, but I like to keep shit separate on my plate, and I just don't feel like that. I don't like that admixture. I don't like the little autistic, kid, using a bunch of vulgarity, and the villain saying "motherfucker" right to his face. It's cringe-worthy for me. I don't know. I couldn't enjoy any of that stuff. If all of that subplot had been excised, and so much of it anyway was just it was just so convenient and contrived, to get people to certain places, bop, bop, bop. Geographically, everything felt entirely too close together. It was just, it was problematic. All that stuff was problematic. I would have loved to have just seen the team up against the Predators. That probably would have been really, really fantastic. I also didn't buy the scientist, Olivia Munn, suddenly just being so competent at shooting really, really high powered military weapons without there were a lot of things that just didn't work for me. I mean, I had fun. I drank a couple of beers, so that probably was part of the fun. Just like Drew had a lot of fun because there was a lot of people just having a badass time, but the film in general just was not what I wanted it to be. So that's my long-winded.
I think that lays a lot out, and I was just thinking about the fact that Drew's big party, back in the early 70s, you would have gone out to the drive-in, and whatever crappy movie was on the screen would be a million times. We should be so lucky as to have anything that was as well constructed as the Predator. Having said that, to me, the main problem is that these are not subplots that can be excised. These are choices this movie made that I think sends the movie in just regrettable directions all the time. So my feeling watching this film was, you have a lot of money on screen. You have one of the best screenwriters money can buy directing the film. You have a very expensive cast made up of name actors, and you have them crammed into choices that just are constantly just annoying me. I don't like the PTSD stuff. I don't like the mental illness stuff as treated here. I don't like the
I want to go back to that.
See,
Okay.
I'm kind of with Jason. I think that, I don't know, a lot of the mental illness played as a goof.
Yeah,
I
sound like
I don't know, man. Some of it, there were bits that were okay, and a lot of it though really felt like.
I mean, I'm not gonna argue against how you feel.
Yeah,
and we can talk about this more later. But I am mentally ill.
No, I'm with you.
I feel like if anybody should be offended, it would be me. I'm not defending.
I'm not offended. I'm annoyed. I'm bored. I feel like I'm watching cliches from sitcoms that should have been forgotten in the late 60s. I feel like Reverend Jim on Taxi. I feel also like an idiot. I feel like that guy who is watching Taxi and going, "Listen, I know a lot of burnouts and it's not funny." I get that Reverend Jim is funny. But I just that's not what I'm here for. You got Keegan Michael Key, you got Sterling Brown. Give them some fucking guns and have them shoot some aliens. I don't need them to be crazy. I don't need the kid to be autistic and completely unrelated to any human being who ever walked the earth. He's afraid of loud noises, but he's also sarcastic and has a big vocabulary. He can remember where all the chess pieces go, this is a made up bullshit character. This movie is wasting my time, and I was just so those are my first thoughts. And
those are some strong first thoughts, but
all right. I haven't reacted to a movie this strongly in a while. Actually, come to think of it. So, all right. So let's get started. Should we start out with the question of the Predator themselves, or this question of these choices, of the way mental illness is portrayed here? Because I don't know jack shit about whether the presentation is realistic. I don't know anything about that. I'm completely ignorant as far as that goes.
Well, I feel
I
like
mean,
we're on that
let's
topic.
dive in.
So
Let's dive into that because
Yeah.
I,
Should we
I,
talk
I
a little
sort
bit
of
about
feel like I want to address this because now that I've opened up, like I feel like it's the gorilla in the room.
Sure.
Is it realistic? Okay, so here's the thing about that, why that's always such a loaded question when you're talking about mental illness, because mental illness is not like having a cold. You know, it's very personal, and it can take whatever form it is when it's in a particular person, and that you know, whatever symptoms someone has might only be particular to that person. So asking whether or not like these are categorically accurate mental illnesses, that's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
I will say,
and maybe not fair. I mean, it might not even be fair to the movie to ask, you know.
But I will say, as somebody who has to sit through so much stuff, where people with post-traumatic stress or dissociative disorders or whatever are the villains, seeing a movie where they are the heroes, I fucking loved that. Like, are you kidding?
That's fair.
Like that made me like the movie more, and I will grant you the stuff about the kids' autism is some Rain Man holdover BS. I can understand why you feel like that's super tropey and, you know, not you know, as well written as it could have been, or even necessary. They could have just made him a really smart kid and accomplished.
Just be a smart kid.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying. And let me just say real quick, I that's what made me sad watching this a lot of the time, because I was like, you guys are running up hills you don't even have to run up, because the audience is already here for you. I'm gonna go with the smart kid. David, you brought up the point. How about we don't even have a kid? There's no particular reason to have a kid here.
Yeah. There's no particular reason to have a kid or his wife. They both are just. I mean, his wife is like, she contributes so little, which is like this horrible waste of this incredible actress.
Yes.
Strahovski. But if you watch Handmaid's Tale, she's an incredible actress. Oh, anyway, they give her nothing.
As far as the soldiers go, I loved having those. Like, I just had to sit through yet another trailer for Halloween, which looks like a good movie.
Yeah,
but that is mental illness in this genre, and so to have a movie where, you know, a group of which I am nominally a part of are the good guys, I enjoyed that, you know, and I'm not saying it was perfect representation, but fuck it, I'll take it.
I'm with you. Is
that's fair. I
is
mean,
Michael Myers mentally ill? I'm not trying to be. I don't want to like waste our time on. But
we're gonna have a lot of time talking about Michael Myers.
You guys have 3 weeks of it coming up, right? 4 weeks.
We're gonna have plenty of time to discuss what is wrong with Michael.
Well, from the perspective of John Carpenter, there's nothing wrong with him. He's just evil.
He's just evil.
Yeah.
He's the shape. Yeah. But we're gonna get. Let's table. You're right. Table that discussion. I loved. So we can make this topic. This is about the question of mental illness, but just the presentation of the truth. Because really, the movie lives or dies based on what's going on with the unit, right? You know, that's what we loved. What we all took away, really, other than the alien from the original Predator. So that unit is made up of some neat guys. I didn't like, and maybe I'm just prejudiced, you know, I didn't like the fact that they were all presented as you know, as mentally ill and on the way to the treatment and yada yada yada. Because I don't trust my own feelings about that. I don't know whether what I'm seeing is complete Hollywood bullshit or whatever. They could have just been a bunch of criminals. I would have been fine with the whole notion that they were a bunch of wacky guys who are criminals. I don't. So those choices
again, it seems
just
like not to. I'm going to defer to Drew. Like, you know, I have my own stuff, and I know people who are dealing with lots of things. In fact, you know, a good friend of mine, his son is autistic, and there are bits that are there that are actually, you know, were disconcerting and very true to life, and how he deals with sounds and stuff like that. Like, that's
sure.
You know, I've seen some of that, not in my friend's son, but just in
No, of
various
course.
people I've known. I think my take on the troop was, again, like you said, like they could have been, just a troop going to the prison. It seemed like so much of it to me just felt like a goof, that
Mhm.
the mental illness was the gag.
Yeah,
And
it's the gag.
sometimes
Yeah.
some of that was actually, written humorously, but did it need to be a troop full of Murdochs from the A-Team?
Well, it didn't need to be, and the script had the solution there because McKenna is being railroaded. They're pretending that he's mentally ill, that he's seeing aliens, and they're using that as an excuse to silence him. They could have, all of these soldiers could be men who, for whatever reason, the government's trying to silence, and they maybe are embracing the whatever the government is saying that they have, but in reality they're not as unstable or whatever. And you could see as the movie progresses how their actual personalities reassert themselves, and they shrug off all of this stuff that the government's trying to foist upon them, and maybe they do have some issues or whatever, but it doesn't have to be as like over the top. And
I think you're talking about a totally different movie there. That's a little
No,
deeper.
but can I ask you a question here?
I think Drew, like I would by no means refute, people are living with this, and then no, man, this is cool. There's heroes there. Representation on all forms is something.
Well, and now I'm wondering if maybe I'm being too vanilla when I'm basically saying, by introducing these exotic ideas, let's go with that for a moment. By introducing these exotic ideas, it's causing me to have to think about things that I don't necessarily want to spend time thinking about when I want to watch a bunch of oiled guys shoot aliens. And so,
but here's my response to that, though.
Right.
This is not the cast from the original Predator. All these guys are quirkier than that. And even Thomas Jane, who never was a really good fit as a leading man, has basically turned into a character actor over the years. Yeah. And that's what he's playing here. And, none of these guys are Jesse the Body Ventura. None of them are Carl Weathers. Like, these are Key is mostly known for comedy. And
right.
Yeah. And so, they got quirky people to play quirky people.
Yeah, that's true. No,
so to me, they're more like the Dirty Dozen than the
No,
and again,
absolutely
tropey, but I don't know. Like I'm not saying it was perfect, but this wasn't a movie. This wasn't supposed to be a movie about their struggle with whatever their illnesses. It ultimately is a monster movie, so these guys are fighting monsters. All I'm saying is I enjoyed seeing these guys as the heroes, because
I respect that.
I all I've ever been told in my adult life is that I am the villain, and that bothers me to no end.
Right. So it's refreshing to see this.
Yes, it was very refreshing.
Although I did just realize, and just maybe to put a cap on it, it does feel like Michael Keaton in the Dream Team, fighting the Predator.
No, I'm telling you, it's there's also one where
Dudley about that movie, and I was like, oh yeah, there's the Dream Team, which is pretty much that bus.
Well, wasn't the one with Dudley Moore where was there the same thing? It was called something like Funny People or something. Crazy people. And of course, all of those were really just comedy riffs on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Oh, which is all totally fine. I mean, I here's my problem. Well, no, I have many problems, but I'm glad we're discussing this. But one of them is, you watch Cheers, right? And Cheers is super funny. I think Cheers gets less funny if you start sincerely labeling these guys as alcoholics. If you point out that Woody really has some sort of clinical issue that in real life would cause it to be very difficult. Woody's too dumb to live. I mean, and so you can laugh at the characters on Cheers as long as we don't confront whatever we might label them in real life. So to me, I just feel like this is just too much flotsam. It's just too much stuff frothing around in this film.
I think that's a personal.
Maybe I'm being unfair.
I think that is personal.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree with Drew. When I think about what I liked about the movie, it was the banter between these guys, and that banter was rooted in they're
the
supposed
bus
to,
scenes,
yeah.
the bus
So,
and hanging out in the living room, and
so I mean,
yeah,
all that was fun, and they had their moments, and each of them used their quirky, unique like way of being to their advantage at some point when fighting the Predator. And I think they all had like moments to shine. And then I mean, I thought it was really cool how this film like echoes the first with the relationship between I guess Sterling Brown's not Sterling Brown's character, Thomas Jane's character, and Michael Key's character, how they were kind of like
definitely
had
there's something there.
There's something there, and so that was a lot of fun, and how they like how they put each other out of their own misery. It was that kind of stuff was cool. I don't know, I enjoyed that kind of stuff. Whenever the kid and the dogs were not on the goddamn screen, I was like, yeah, all right.
And fairness about
so you would have cut the kid in the go ahead, Drew.
Yes. And fairness, that is a holdover from the Robert Rodriguez Predator movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that is there's actually I was surprised at how many callbacks.
Because I watched Predator 2 before seeing this. I watched it like on Friday and then saw this on Saturday, and I thought about seeing Predators, but I didn't. So like, what's the connection? Because I haven't seen Predators in a long time.
Predators, first of all, it does introduce the concept that the Predators have hunting dogs.
Oh yeah, I guess that's right.
The whole idea that there is feuding factions of Predators, that comes from that movie, and it carried over into this. And the fact that there's two different types of Predators, like a bigger, scarier one. I actually feel like they pulled that off better in Predators and then they did in this.
There's a really great line that the doctor has, that Olivia Munn has, where she's like, why do we call them predators? It sounds more like you're describing a sport hunter.
Oh yeah,
that's funny stuff. And I would say
the entire film was really, really great. I love it.
And we should talk specifically about the callbacks. You would cut the kid and the dogs. I would cut the humor, frankly, except for a couple lines that work for me.
You don't have Shane Black and Fred Decker and don't have jokes.
But then
I mean, I will say that for all the discussions, like some of the stuff in the living room was really good. There's a ton of good bits.
But the stuff where she's waking up is hilarious in the hotel room. That's a good. That there are some good bits there. I feel like, listen, I'm a big Lethal Weapon fan. I think I loved Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think Shane Black is really clever. I don't think he's bringing it here. I feel like out of every 10 jokes he tells, 8 don't land. I feel like there's had a lot of studio messing around. A lot of EPs, a lot of producers and executive producers like putting their spoons.
I would be willing to bet that like the dog hanging around as long as it did was a studio thing, because a lot of this
sounds like
shoots
the dog, but it doesn't die, and it comes to this. I get these kinds of notes on scripts sometimes. So anyway,
a lot of that stuff seemed like set up also for sequels that we're probably not going to get.
Well, we might. It's doing okay. I mean,
we'll see.
The thing is, even when you don't really dig a movie, if it does well enough that they can do a sequel and they can actually fix stuff you didn't like, and you can come back and go, "Gosh, I had this problem last time." What happens to the Saint Bernard? Or I can't remember. I think it's the same. There is a real dog that chases after them.
It's a Rottweiler.
The Roddy. I lost track of it. What happened to it? It seemed like it was going to be important too?
Does. I don't know.
I mean, they didn't obliterate it or anything. It came back in ways that I was like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean,
maybe it was hanging out with. I got it, guys. It was hanging out with Steven Wilder Striegel's character, and so it got cut from the film.
Oh my God, you might be right. Okay,
it was jogging along with him, and then accosting female dogs.
The funny thing is, as much as I didn't like this movie, it has nothing to do with any kind of a controversy or whatever. For me, it's a dislike of love. I just feel like there was some missed opportunities, but I didn't know jack all about the controversy. So
I think you would do well to check out Predator 2 or Predators. I think those will be more your speed, Jason.
I like Predator 2 a lot still.
I like all of these movies to varying degree. I don't even hate this one. I just like it the least.
But there's nothing in it that stands up to Maria Conchita Alonso saying, "Tú también, motherfucker, baby." That's just great. "Tú también, motherfucking baby." That's such a great line. Such a great line delivery. Oh my god, just great film. Great film.
So
People of color as the main character. It's just great. Predator 2. I mean, it's goofy
Well,
in some ways.
also,
It's
like, how can
very
you
early
go
90s.
wrong with Gary Busey as an insane government scientist? I mean, come on.
I guess
He's
I have to
beautiful.
see it because I don't.
Gary Busey.
I've now
is-
seen 2 Predator movies.
I will.
Jake-
I will say, getting back to the Predator business in this,
Yes.
true to form, when Predator wakes up in the lab and just wrecks shit. That was anytime Predators are wrecking things in this movie.
Yes.
I got to give it up, man. Because
absolutely.
And the scientists in this, it looks like some of them were at least trained in weaponry,
Yeah.
along with the guards. But
Well, and
you know,
and
supposedly,
Jake
supposedly they
Busey,
even
of
know,
course.
like they even know, like, hey, you're here to guard this thing that hunts for a living. We're gonna hire we're gonna get some of the best people in, but that doesn't matter at all.
No. And then this Predator, on top of that, is like super, super intelligent, and he can hack because he takes this old mask from 10 years ago and hacks into his mask that's elsewhere on the planet.
I love the idea that the Predators have their own version of the internet. That was one of the innovations.
He just links up to.
That was one of the innovations of this that I actually liked. Like some of the other stuff I could have done, like the idea that they're taking spines for the actual spinal fluid.
Oh yeah, that seems stupid.
You could get.
I don't care. I don't care for that. Yeah,
maybe stupid too harsh. It didn't matter to me. I wouldn't say it's dumb. It was like, hey, that's in fact it is. Anyway, it's interesting.
They obviously take
like,
things.
Hey, that's a different take. I wasn't expecting that.
It's
not
just explaining.
Not dumb.
Stuff.
Just that didn't need it.
Explaining stuff that doesn't need to be explained.
Right. The other like unnecessary or arguably dumb thing is, and I know we're jumping all over the place, but where the giant predator uses the translation software to speak to them. They can fucking imitate human voices. If they want to speak to us, why do they need to use a translator? They've been coming to the planet
a really solid
hundreds
point.
upon hundreds of years.
That's a really solid point. I never thought about that. I mean, I liked the Predator using a PA system, but you're right. He could have the Predator could have sat down at like a 2x6 table and grabbed one of those little bendy microphones like Rambo has. That would have been funny.
That would have been hilarious.
Keegan Michael Key, I'm coming for you.
And using the voice of one of the people in the film.
Yeah. Well, that's what you expect. That he, I mean, in the past, they've always used sound bites to basically kind of repeat things. And that they know what it is because there's context to it.
Yeah, because it's contextually
they obviously understand English. They listen, they do things. Like in Predator 2, like he listens, he knows where people are. He will deliberately trick one guy and then go to the place where his partners are. Like they clearly understand English. So all this bullshit is I was pulled out of the story.
That's so funny. I totally did not think of what this issue. Yeah,
I did not like the
I'm a linguist,
Predator at all in this movie. I hated the way he looked. I thought
Which one? The giant one or the white
Super Predator? No, Predator Class. Everything with Predator Classic was great.
Yeah.
I feel like the Super Predator seemed like something out of a Marvel film. Like he wasn't scary. He looked like Thanos as a Predator, and like he just wasn't scary to me. He was too much. The fact
explain them to me, and I apologize. I did watch the movie, but I didn't necessarily follow what was going on. Like, why is that Predator a giant? And is the first one, is he in fact literally the same model, or are we to understand him as the same model Predator as the one that fought Arnie in 1987?
So if we
just lay it out for me any way you want to lay this out. I lay it at your feet. Go ahead.
If we were to go off of the previous film, there are two types of predators. There is the classic Predator, which is the one seen in most of the other movies. And then there is what I am now understanding, there are predators that are splicing themselves with the opponents they defeat. And in Predators, they're like basically bigger, stronger predators, but they're not quite this over the top. This one seems like almost like a cyborg or something. Like his weapons are growing out of his body. He doesn't have the cool helmet. Like, he's 11 feet tall, which was way too big. It made him like seem like the Hulk. I don't know. Like, it made it less horrific to me because there's a relatability about the regular Predator that I think grounds it, even though like the character is over the top. Like, the fact that like I can relate to his physical form a little bit more makes him more frightening to me. Whereas this thing, like I said, it just seemed like something out of a Marvel movie, which made me think that that's something that like the studio said, hey, you know, we can't have that basic Predator running around. That's old hat. We have to have this juiced up steroid Predator.
And you know what the
11 feet tall.
You know what really bothered me about this giant Predator is, in the first two films, they, even though they have extraordinary like technology stuff like that, they seem to be a little more sporting. Like, they want to like give people a chance to be able to stand up against them. But an 11 fucking foot tall Predator, that's not sporting. What the fuck is that? Send that motherfucker to the alien planet. No, don't send him to Earth.
Yeah, he's
chasing this guy. Like, I think normally he would do that, but
yeah, I guess that's true.
He's chasing this down. You know, they've sent, you know, Super Hulk Predator down here to fix a problem. I go back and forth. I think there's some interesting things that he does, but again, I mean, it wasn't scary. All the carnage bits were, a lot of the techno bits were where the real like insanity happens, and that to me, again, you know, like the grappling hook that's also, you know, razor wire. And
that was cool.
That.
Oh,
like,
I really liked the action. You know, like the garroting that the Predator does, you know, towards the end. There's a lot of really neat, just goofy, honestly 80s style action going on. Also, there's some fascinating looking firearms. For some reason, the Internet Movie Firearms database is completely updated as to who's carrying what through this entire movie. And this movie just came out. But in case you're wondering, Olivia Munn towards the end is carrying an M4A1. I mean, this is some heavy duty like detailing, and I wonder like how do these guys get all this information beforehand, unless the studio is going like, listen, the guys on the Internet Movie Firearms database, they're gonna love this movie.
Who was it?
Well, I mean, there's prop masters and weapon masters on every.
Sorry, Tony. What?
There's prop masters and weapon masters on every shoot. It's not like
yeah, but to have the shots, like, in other words, this is complicated. They would have to have a big spreadsheet of everything available in the movie with screenshots of whenever the thing appears. I'm just saying it takes a lot of work to get this done.
Internet be crazy. That's really
internet. Yes, yes, indeed. I'm sorry, Drew. You were saying something.
Who was it that was bothered by Olivia Munn suddenly being able to go commando?
That was me.
No, David said that.
I gotta say, you are right in your criticism. It is not realistic in the slightest that a evolutionary biologist is suddenly, the Punisher.
Yeah.
But if it were in any other kind of movie, it would bother me more. But because this was in a certain style, like that's
I enjoyed her being a badass. I just wish that there had been like a better like in story.
All you'd have to do is say that she was in the Marines.
Yeah, they could have thrown in a line that she was, you know, like she does sharpshooting.
Maybe she does boot camp.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I kind of after a while it pulled me out of the story first, but then I thought to myself, okay, they've mentioned that she's like been on their short list of contacts if there's ever any kind of alien, arriving on Earth. She said something about being in their database, and I'm thinking, oh well, maybe they've given her some like training. It would like a throwaway line would have helped. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you about that.
I don't know. I was just there's so much goofy that her turning that part totally didn't matter to me.
At that point, you're
like
either
in
or you're just like, fuck this movie, one or the other, right?
No, I don't. Yeah, I just thought, cool. They gave
whatever. I mean,
combat. That's better than like.
But it would have
I
been
don't know if we could
to
trust
have
you
an
with
actual
guns,
female
lady.
soldier.
Like,
And I mean, that's what I liked about Predator 2 was, you've got the, her, what was her name? Leona or something like that, which is a dumb name, but anyway, Leona was a cop and she had a fucking gun and she killed things and people.
All you'd have to do, look, I went to law school with people who had been in the Marines and been in the Air Force, and all you have to do is say that she was in the Army. It is so, there's nothing. All you got to do is say, oh yeah, please, I had 3
They
years
also
of this
wanted her
job.
to be a fish out of water with the soldiers, though. They wanted to have their cake and eat it
Oh,
too.
that's
and
true.
I just was like,
Yeah.
fuck this.
That's just, I got nothing for you.
Sloppy writing.
I can't help you.
Dude, we're all writers and we know what this is. This is sloppy ass writing, dude.
That's a super good point. Okay.
Yeah, if you or I turned in a manuscript like this to an editor, we would get back this editorial letter like reaming us, and we would spend like months rewriting.
You know what?
So
I can't say
this
I've
guy.
ever written. I can't ever say that I've written anything that's as competent as this.
I
whatever, dude. I'm sorry. Any issue of Halloween Man is better than this shit, dude. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that I am better than Shane Black.
I'm always
his
looking
dialogue,
like
his dialogue is like really snappy and shit, but you've got you plot better. The motivations of characters are clearer and more compelling. I'm sorry, I just the way I feel about this particular
Mr.
script.
Professor. Woo.
Nice.
Says I couldn't come to your birthday party. There's your birthday present.
Thank you.
So
you are a more competent writer than the screenplay writer.
Shane Black, as seen here, I honestly don't think that. I just don't. This is not Lethal Weapon. And by the way, getting back to tone for a moment, when you think about Lethal Weapon, think about like what those movies are like. They would veer into like dramatic stuff, right? Like Riggs is wait, no, which one is I'm sorry, which one is Mel Gibson?
He's Murtaugh.
He's Murtaugh.
No, wait. No.
Murtaugh?
He's Riggs.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, that's
All right.
Yeah. Right. Riggs is
So,
is
anyway, Mel Gibson is considering suicide because he's still in mourning about his wife. But that's as dramatic as those movies get. They are essentially comedies. They're basically just big buddy action comedies. And I wonder is that what this is? Is this basically just a big comedy? And I'm looking at it all wrong. In other words,
The Predator franchise is rife with genre splicing. So I think trying to which kind of makes it appropriate that this is a movie about gene splicing. But because like the first one is an action slasher mashup, and then the second one is basically Lethal Weapon meets the Predator, and it's not just because of Danny Glover, but because of the style of the way the movie is. And then you have the Predators, which is kind of a mashup between the original film and a like more like I would say almost like a Western in a lot of ways. So like this is right in line. The fact that you got so many genres bouncing around in here, I think is right in line with everything else we've seen from these movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
But there's a way of splicing things together so that, because I think that Lethal Weapon films work because they're comedic, but that there's enough drama in them, in the plot and in the character beats, that in it's I don't know, it's carefully balanced. Like he did a better job carefully balancing them. And here, the comedy and the action are at odds with each other. They're like clashing. There's no harmony.
I agree with you about that. I'm not sure if I agree with you about what Lethal Weapon is. I think maybe that's a great thing about Lethal Weapon, is that it's super hard to figure out which do I think more. Is it an action movie or is it a comedy? It's very hard to answer, right?
Yeah.
But it is hard to answer, but it feels annoying for me to keep having to ask it. Like, why are we? I swear to God, I was sitting there and I was always like, oh, for fuck's sake, why are we slowing down again to have more character bits? I mean, it just really, and with that level of just dripping derision, I was just getting annoyed by the character bits, and that's not me. I watch some of the most character-y stuff that exists. But at
the same time, when we jump past that into the action, although I mean, I think like the explosions and the monster effects and stuff are cool. The action itself is kind of confusing. The geographics of where things are happening is not really clear. I don't know. I mean, I was
okay with the action. That was the part that
I mean, it was okay. It was okay, but it wasn't as clear as it could be. I mean,
Predator
even if
wreaking havoc on the the lab at the beginning, like Tony said.
Oh, that was all very clear. That was good.
I
Although-
think the scene in the school
Yeah.
is very well done, especially the way they kind of misdirect you with the classic Predator and the Super Predator, like the way they
That's
like
true.
like
Yeah.
some of that stuff is very masterfully done. Like when this movie is on, it's on.
All the stuff after they leave the house, however, well, I mean not all the stuff, but a lot of the stuff after they leave the house, I guess after the school, all the stuff after the school is like, what? I don't know.
Well,
The
also the
Sterling
whole
Brown. I'm sorry.
I
Go
don't
ahead, please.
I felt like a lot of it. I see where you're coming from, but again, to me, whenever there was action happening, it was pretty awesome because I don't know. All
Yeah,
of that stuff-
I don't draw the distinction quite that David does, but David, I appreciate your point. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I
but,
mean the action was cool. I enjoyed it, but I'm just like, I mean, as opposed to other Predator films where you have a clear sense of where people are and what's going on, that wasn't always the case, especially towards the end when they get into the woods and I don't know.
Well, a lot of this movie, for whatever reason, they decided to go a lot. And again, to me, like it seems like they were trying to do universe building because that's what everybody wants now is to have these big franchises. This movie seems so much bigger than all the other movies. It doesn't necessarily feel better in some ways, but like there's so many changings of locale. There's so much going on. Like, and they actually have like the original movies, like you may have some characters that are slightly like secondary antagonists. This movie is the first Predator movie I would say has a full-on human antagonist, and he's great. I think that actor is great. I can't remember his name at the moment, but like he's hysterical and
Sterling Brown.
Sterling Brown. Yeah, like he's I loved everything with him just about, but like he isn't actually necessary because you have the Predator.
I didn't like him. I didn't like this character. It didn't work for me. That I just felt like it felt very, for me, I felt like this was just another villain, and like this is the problem. If I were arguing with myself, if Shane were sitting here, he would go, "Jason, you are completely contradicting yourself. Just 10 minutes ago, you said, don't waste my time making these characters different. Have them be the same. Now you're saying Sterling K. Brown's character appears to be a carbon copy of 1,000 different evil corporate bad people in the Alien and Predator universes, and that's true. So I don't.
I took him as kind of, his whole demeanor to me is very much like a holdover from like 80s machismo, even though he's like like the whole like part where like we were talking about like Olivia Munn saying like, well, that's more like a big game hunter. He was like, yeah, well, we took a vote and Predator sounds cooler, and everybody's like, yeah, and he's like, fuck yeah. Like the fact that he has to add fuck yeah, like that is like, this guy thinks that he's Arnold or Carl Weathers.
You're
like
totally right.
So they needed a character like that because the heroes in this movie aren't that. You know, they're a unit, maybe.
They're sort of lovable losers in a way. I get that. Yeah.
They are lovable losers, is exactly right. But because that is the identity of the franchise, is of having these like macho, like hyper macho characters. They needed a character to be that, and I think it's kind of interesting that it was the villain. Like that. Like that's my defense of it. I'm not trying to make you like it, Jason.
No. I'm with you. I didn't actively dislike him the way I actively disliked a lot of other stuff. With him, I don't know. I got no reaction to that. It's. I would like to. In fact, I was about to say, it reminded me of the guys, like Burke. This is very much like the Burke character in a way, in Aliens. And in fact, when jumping to the end, we can jump around, and I apologize, but jumping to the end, when they have the coffer that the so-called ally Predator has left for us, they open it up, And I swear to God, when they said, "Oh, it's a predator killer," I was like, "Holy mackerel! They sent a xenomorph." I completely
That would have been
expected.
fucking badass, actually.
That would have
I
been
wondered-
better, or if
wondered
it had been
for a
Arnold.
second if they were
It
going to do
needed
that
to
as
either-
well.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be a clone of Arnold too. I thought that. I thought, oh my god, Arnold
It needed
sit
to either
up.
be, it needed
That
to
would have been
either be
fucking
Arnold
awesome.
or you know, really
xenomorph,
ancient Danny Glover or a xenomorph. Like
Yeah.
like any one of those things. That fucking armor was lame. And that's when I talk about stuff that seems like added on by the studio. That
Yeah.
like to me, the real end of the movie is the sniper guy talking to his son about, you know, these are the people that you
Yeah.
know will not be remembered.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie, and that should have been the end of the movie. The fucking armor thing seems like something out of a Marvel. Like it seemed like
Yep.
okay,
Marvel-y.
this is we gotta make
And
our
McKenna's all like, "This is my new suit, baby," and like, "Oh shit, we're gonna have like Iron Man versus the Predator." That's the next film.
No, that's precisely it. And
Jesus
and
Christ.
that's fine. I don't care. I was just like, I was checked out at that point. I did think it was really funny that Boyd Holbrook, you know, shows up as McKenna and in that scene, and to establish that time has passed, they have given him a beret under which he is wearing a really stupid shag wig, so
Yep.
that his straw blonde hair is like all puffy around his ears. Like he hasn't, like, you know, the dude is in the army and he hasn't had time, I guess, to go get a haircut because he's been killing too many people in Central America or whatever it is that he does for a living. And yes, I just thought that was it is the dumbest looking wig.
If they wanted to make me excited about a possible sequel to this, it should have been really honestly it should have been either Arnold or a xenomorph. Because to actually get a good Alien versus like if we got an Alien versus Predator movie that was even half as good as this movie, I would be pretty happy because both
I'm with you
both
there.
of those movies are hot garbage. Like I know they have their
They're really, really bad.
I have no
this is
idea. I have not seen them.
Classic compared to them, yeah.
Oh,
what
man.
a waste of a perfectly good, fun pulp movie. Like in you know
What
the
goes
second.
wrong with them?
Also-
Like boiling it down, what happened to them? Tony, if you were going in a different direction, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I don't know, man. It's hard to even explain.
Well, the
It's just
first
bad,
one,
man.
the first one they made it PG-13, and it tries way too hard to be, geez, whatever it's trying to be. Like I don't know. It's got a lot of mythology, like almost too much. And then the second one, because almost as a reaction to the first one getting so much criticism for being PG-13, it is just so unnecessarily nasty.
Oh yeah, it's just cynical, nihilistic, and it's not even. Oh, it's so bad.
It's not fun.
We live in a world where there was an original Dark Horse Aliens versus Predator.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, that was great.
Awesome, and all you had to do was make that. That's it. Just
How
make
many
that.
times have we had that conversation?
Because it was
I mean,
awesome.
that.
And like the introduction of I remember specifically the panel where there's they introduce the xenomorph. Like all of that was suspenseful. You're like, oh man, it's gonna go down. This is what we've been waiting for. All you had to do was make that.
So I have a confession to make. Speaking of predators fighting things,
Okay.
when I was 10 years old, I was obsessed with the idea of Jason Voorhees fighting a predator, and I don't know why. And like this movie re-sparked that mental debate in my head so much that I am now arguing with people on Facebook about it.
Listen,
And-
Drew,
Well,
you
that's your
could
first
do.
mistake
You could
is
just
arguing with
create.
people on Facebook, but
Well, do you have a Jason Voorhees style zombie in Halloween Man who you could do a standalone thing where he fights the predator, where you could just
Let's have-
basically.
Let's just have Halloween Man versus Predator.
Well, in TV tropes they call them an XP.
Dark Horse, are you
Like
listening?
in TV tropes they call it an XP, where if you take a character that basically like the predator and you just basically change like a couple things about him so you can do your own thing, that's an XP. You've exported the predator into something else. So my point is, you could do your Jason versus Predator story. I would just do it and have different characters.
Thankfully, the last Mortal Kombat video game allowed me to actually have that.
that is true.
But I still kind of want the movie, and I don't know why, because it doesn't make any sense. But
Like, I think it all hinges. This is the geeky part of me. I think it all hinges on how much Jason can regenerate in the ways that he's done in the past, because he's supernatural. Because to me, oh man, I feel silly when you ask. Like, the Predator can rip through like everything and can just blow shit up. So if you live in a world where you can blow up Jason and he doesn't come back, hands down Predator. But
my thing is about this, though, like, this is how I get nerdy. Can the Predator even see Jason? Because I don't think he has a body temperature.
Yeah, I mean, he can see him.
Oh, that's a good... No, but you just invented a good plot point. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
once you can see him,
the Predator is a good...
I feel like I'm 12, but...
Yes! Victory! Ha ha!
But if he can at all, even if he got stabbed, he can still blow up anything, and he's got a self-destruct mechanism, he's got that crazy laser thing.
Can take out a Predator. I think Jason can.
Yeah, okay.
To me, it all hinges, like I said, on how much he can regenerate the way he has in the past. I don't know.
Can I bring this back to the Predator, and here's how. When we talked about Jason versus Freddy, whatever that movie was technically called.
Freddy versus Jason.
Freddy versus Jason. I was so close.
Freddy was wrongly given top billing. Fuck you very much, Freddy Krueger.
You raise a super good point, because no, I agree with you. But what's interesting there is that movie also employed a lot of humor by a writer that surely isn't as hallowed as Shane Black, but I really enjoyed the humor in Freddy versus Jason. And tonally, that movie was a pretty silly movie, in the same way that this is a pretty silly movie. So, who knows why exactly my big complaint is about the humor, because, I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't land. Okay, tell me what else we should discuss about this film, because otherwise we need to wrap it up.
Do we want to even touch on the controversy? Is that something we feel like?
Who can recap it in like 20 seconds and then see if we have anything to say about it? I could probably boil it down.
So it's pretty straightforward. We've got Stephen Wilder, who's a long-term friend of Shane Black, and Stephen Wilder was in 2010 convicted of a sex offense, and he's a registered felony sex offender because he tried to seduce a 14-year-old girl into having a sexual relation with him, and so via email, and so. He's a registered sex offender. Clearly 8 years have gone by. Shane Black hired him for this minor unauditioned role that had to do with his interaction with Olivia Munn, but didn't tell her or anybody else working on the film, that this guy was a registered sex offender. When she discovered it after the scenes had been filmed, she made, obviously she went to Shane and made a big deal about it. And he realized that even though his public statement was, I believe in giving people second chances, but I realized that this wasn't the right second chance to give this guy, and this was the right place to give it to him. Yeah. And so I edited him out. So it feels like he was just trying to do a down and out friend a good turn. He was willing to forget it. From his perspective, perhaps, 8 years have gone by. This guy's done his penance or whatever. He's reformed himself. We don't know him. So, maybe from the friend's perspective, it's different. But not telling anybody is like a major problem. You don't involve somebody with that kind of a history in scenes with a woman. And these scenes apparently were scenes where he was like coming on to her or whatever. It just was like highly inappropriate for the situation. So he was deleted.
Olivia Munn made some statements about it when asked about it. She said that she didn't intend to make a big public relations thing about it, but she was asked about it, and she did speak her mind. The actors
didn't want to dissuade anybody because I was avoiding anything about this movie because I wanted to go in completely virginal in a way. I didn't know about any of this until actually this morning, but everything I've read for her, she wasn't ever actually trying to dissuade anybody from seeing the movie. Like that was the thing that was
No,
interesting.
not at all.
Like she wasn't like boycott the movie, fuck the movie. Like so that was in the era that we are in. That was to me interesting because I don't know how I would have felt going into the movie had I known about all of that. Like, I don't know what my reaction, like if I would have been able to not think about it, because it is wrong, doing that to a cast member and not like the way it was. Like, I'm glad it was taken out of the film, and like I feel like I don't know how I feel about it though. Like in the long, I'm not going to say that like the way it was handled doesn't. Shane Black is a writer and a director that whose work I've admired
Sure.
in a lot of stuff, but
this won't affect it. This one, it was a minor. It really was a tempest. It's in a teapot.
Well, I don't know though.
Came
like,
and it
what
went.
does everybody else
like
think about
maybe
that?
Don't do that and have some
Right.
like. There's doing your friends a solid, but man.
Oh no, I agree with you about. What I mean is, if you're assessing whether or not it hurt this movie, I don't think it did.
I had a
obviously
couple
it
friends who I said I was going to go see it. I already bought my tickets before I read the news about this, and they were definitely like, "No, man, screw this. I'm not supporting this crap."
See, that actually is going to hearken to my endorsement this week. So, but that I always often feel is the wrong attitude to take. I mean, because the
only way to vote is with your dollars, though. I don't know if
that's totally true.
I kind of fall in between, Jason. I feel like if Olivia Munn herself was saying don't go see the movie, then I probably would get boycotting it. But
no, I got David, you. I'm just
I want to know what David thinks.
Yeah,
he is wiser than us.
If guys on a crew or a director did something bad, is that enough to say I'm not going to watch? Oh, well, the way I just phrased this one, I'm not going to watch that guy's movies anymore. I don't care if they're brilliant or whatever. By the way, I didn't like this movie, so it's kind of funny that I'm the one that's coming to the defense of watching it. But
I'm just saying that if you feel like no matter where you sit and what you think about something, the real way I already had my ticket. We were covering for this podcast. I think it's unfortunate and was a mistake that it just all of it could have been avoided. Reality though is you don't have to write a million think pieces on your outrage, or even I have a podcast where we're talking about this. But in general, the real true way to affect change in entertainment is voting with your dollars or not, right? I mean, that's the only real way. You can post a million things, but if something does really well at the box office, they're just going to make more things. That's the long and short of it. And so having a friend who's like, hey, I read that, I just think it's wrong, I'm not going to support that. Whether I, like I said, I already bought my ticket. I'm not going to say that that's an invalid way to handle it if you feel strongly about it.
The ticket buying thing, and again, I really do want to hear what David has to say. Like I really do, because he's quiet right now, and I want to hear it. But I want to throw this one more thing. Me buying my ticket to support this movie in a larger sense has less to do with even Shane Black, and more saying, "Hey, Hollywood, I want you to make R-rated monster movies."
Mm-hmm.
I don't want everything to be PG-13.
I agree with you. Yeah,
like that to me was my like everything, and I don't agree with the way this was handled, and I'm not going to say that like when I did learn about it that it didn't make. So now our podcast is all tonally all over the place, just like this movie. So anyway, David, I want to know what you think about this. What do you think the right thing to do here is?
Well, I mean, for us as viewers, as completists for the series, you want to see it. There were like tons of other people involved in the film who did put in a lot of work. Thousands of people were employed. Great actors that we love were in the film. Shane Black made a arguably very, very stupid mistake, not necessarily in hiring the guy, because I do believe in redemption and I do believe that people can change, but in not letting people know and letting them have some kind of conversation about like what it was going to be like, and and also like writing a role for the guy that kind of is fraught with echoes of what he did. I mean, all those are really, really bad decisions. They don't rise to the level. I mean, I'm not going to boycott him the way I boycott films by people, by directors, like, who have actually slept with underage girls, and who are still wanted by the police in certain countries for committing these crimes.
Sure.
Or who have married the victims of this. So everybody knows the two directors that I'm thinking about right now.
Yes. And there's probably many more we don't even know about.
Exactly. But those two,
truly.
Exactly. Those two guys, I don't see. I will never see a Woody Allen film again, and I haven't for like decades. And with Roman Polanski, I mean, it's harder because he made some films that I really, really love, but I will not watch anything that he puts out anymore. Like, so with certain people, you take that stand. This does not rise to that level. This is just boneheadedness and stupidity, and human beings are boneheaded and stupid. And I think he resolved the issue. I think that he apologized and that the people affected were okay with his apology. And so from my personal ethics standpoint, that allows me to go see this film. Now, I wish I hadn't spent $12 on this piece of shit film. But that's like an economic issue and a quality issue. But the film, I don't see any reason to boycott the film. I mean, let it stand on its own merits, and our listeners will have to make choices for themselves. But that's my perspective on it.
Right.
And this is
why I agree. Like I'm with you, and I think all that's valid. My point is basically that if you feel something strongly enough that, well, I'm pretty sick of just Twitter because some horrible people use this vote with your dollars too, but they're also really terrible about it on social media.
Yeah.
To me, the real way I see change, but also there's no way to write on your ticket, like, I am going to see this movie because I love monster movies,
Yeah.
You don't get a vote like that. So it's a little bit more nebulous, but I don't have a problem with a friend of mine who looks at things and goes, you know what, that is not where I want to spend my cash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is truly, in the entertainment world, how you vote, and that's with box office receipts. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more with David on that. It's just, I don't know. Again, probably the assessment of this podcast will also be a mixed bag.
And I'm the thing that I am deathly aware of right at this moment. I keep wanting to say things like, well, let's make sure that there's always we have shades of gray so that we can have one response for Shane Black in this like one issue versus another response for Roman Polanski. But then I realize, who the hell am I? I'm just a guy. We don't even have Julia this week. We are way out on the ice, guys. We are way far. We are way farther than the red rope that they laid on the ice and said, "Don't go near there." We're out there. We should not. I feel like the least equipped person to talk about how seriously I should be taking these things. So
no, well, I don't know.
Julia.
You're also the father of teenage daughters, and I think that from that perspective, you have a lot to say. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know humans, and so I always feel like there are shades of gray. There are people, there are, so. This particular issue I thought was a tempest in a teapot. I thought it was a big bunch of stupid. It all got resolved. It got resolved before the movie came out. There's almost kind of nothing to see here. I like the fact, though, that that's sort of how the culture is looking at it, and that's good because we don't want our culture to become one where the moment there's like a hint of controversy around you, it kills you. But that's not the world that we have. Shane Black's is just fine. The Predator's just fine, So, and in fact, you might even say we have the opposite world because Roman Polanski's not doing too poorly either. He just has to live in Europe.
Maybe we should send the Predator after Roman Polanski.
I would pay to see that film.
Predators? It's like
You know,
some
if you
John,
want to hear,
John Stossel and
Oh God,
if
that'd be so funny. It could be
if you
like
want to, oh no, that
Harvey
wasn't.
Weinstein and
Never mind Predator versus Jason. I'm going to write Predator versus Roman
Predators.
Polanski.
Oh yeah, and Woody
Predator
Allen.
versus Weinstein, Predator versus Allen, Allen versus Predator. That even works as a pun.
Yes. You're
Oh,
right.
man.
You're actually right. Yeah. So okay. Gosh, there's so. By the way, if you want to know the story of the Polanski thing, there is a podcast series called "You Must Remember This" that spent an entire hour-long episode on Polanski and his, what led to him leaving the United States, and also, it starts with his reaction to the very bizarre and just horrifyingly tragic murder of his wife Sharon Tate. But then this other stuff happens. So yeah. Okay, why don't we get our final thoughts? I don't know how far afield. I don't know if the audience will be like, "Oh, this is one of your best episodes ever," or "You guys are unfocused and weird." The Predator.
I'm leaning towards possibly column 2.
Yes.
Yeah,
I will take
and
option
in
B.
retrospect, I kind of wish we'd talked more about
The movie?
insane,
No, I feel like we did.
special effects and crazy action. But okay.
Okay. No, but I feel like we're hitting on some culturally significant stuff.
Sure.
I do feel confident about that. So I will defend you. I will defend us. Frankly, I'm defending me since I'm the one.
Just blame me. Just blame me. See, the guest panelist fucked it
It's
all
the
up.
guest.
Jesus Christ.
Any problems with this movie? I put on the fact that it's a Shane Black movie that did not take place on Christmas.
So
There you go. It happened on Halloween.
He jinxed himself.
I just will never get tired of seeing scenes of characters. I'm not being sarcastic at all. I love scenes in the movies where the characters are trick-or-treating. Love them. Makes me happy. Just create that scene over and over again. I liked it in E.T. I'll never get tired of it. It's just.
You know what is
They knew what
missing?
they were doing.
Is
What
just the Predator with a bag of candy. Just or
The
like
kid-
but he's like walking down the street and he's like, yeah, because nobody expects it to be the actual Predator. Like he had the kid, but like if the Predator was just walking amongst them looking for his quarry.
Yeah.
That would have been.
Everybody
For
just
all
Just
like,
the kid from the
criticism of
movie
kid
and had
being
that
in
scene
this
instead.
movie, for all your criticism of the kid being in the movie, the Halloween stuff wouldn't have been as big a deal if the kid hadn't been in the movie. And frankly, that was the smart. Like, even though I just made a joke about it, the fact that this was set on Halloween and there was Halloween stuff in it. Aside from the fact that it shows how smart Fox was with their timing of the release, I loved all the business of the kid walking around with the Predator's mask on while trick or treating. That was that's great.
Blowing up the house was pretty good. Even though I have my own things where, like, look, the bad guys listen to heavy metal. Although I've met enough people like the people who get blowed up real good, so it's not entirely untrue. But that was a pretty good scene.
That's strung out, Jackwad. I think it's funny though.
I laughed.
Yeah. You're talking about the sudden murder of some.
A house full of people unintentionally.
A house full of who know, of probably a bunch of drug abusers, and unfortunately their spokesman is a strung out jerkwad who throws a rock at the kid, and so he kills them all, and that just happens.
The kid does not kill them all. The mask does it for
True. All right. That's yeah, I guess. That's I don't
talk it up to the Predators once again, or at least Predator technology.
You raise a really, really good point. Because when Iron Man blasts somebody, Tony does it because he controls when his repulsors go off. But if little missiles fly from Tony's shoulders and blow up people, did Tony do that, or did the armor do that? I don't.
But
this sounds like
my point is the kid didn't choose to kill those people.
I guess
this sounds like a whole episode of Tony Stark in a courtroom where people are trying to decide if Iron Man is a menace or not.
But it's the funny thing is we've paid more attention to it than the movie does.
Sure,
this scene comes and goes.
We really should do final
theme of
Okay.
this show. Yeah.
Final
Anyway.
thoughts. I'm dying to know what you guys thought ultimately, wrapping it all up. If you've changed your mind from the beginning to the end, we'll go Tony, Drew, David, and then I'll go. Tony, final thoughts. The Predator.
I liked a lot of it. Again, like this podcast, it's a fairly uneven mixture. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully not too self-facing there. But anyway, yeah, when there's Predator action going on, it's pretty badass. I think there's a lot of great bits and the actors are doing, they seem to be having a blast. I wasn't as bothered about the kid stuff as David. Maybe have just been to too many Weird Wednesdays and Fantastic Fests, so it doesn't bother me in the same way. If it's an animal, however, it bothers me. I don't know. Child endangerment, animals really bugs the hell out of me, actually. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed a lot of it. Still worth seeing, especially as a completionist. Still better than the Aliens versus Predator movies.
Oh, by a large margin.
Yeah, by a huge margin. But in general, I'd still, if I had my choice, I'd watch 2 instead of this, by also a wide margin for me. But I got to give it up for the action people and the practical stuff where that's at. It's really, really good.
Fantastic. Who do we have next? Drew, what are your final thoughts?
You know what? I know we got a little all over the place, but I enjoyed this discussion. It was fun and it was raucous, and I think it was appropriate for this all over the place raucous movie. I think I actually like the movie a little more having discussed it, because I feel like I've processed my feelings now about all the stuff surrounding it and the way the movie actually is. I still don't think it's perfect. I still think you can tell that there's some studio meddling in it. I would like to see, a pure edit that didn't have some of that stuff in it. But it's a fun movie. I personally still think this is my least favorite of the sequels, but it's a fun movie, and it's a good enough entry. I think even though it does this hits one of my worst pet peeves of like trying to explain stuff that doesn't need to be explained. If you like practical monster effects, like to see a movie in this point in time that still has those, it's great to see that, and that's why I always come back to these movies. So there's a lot going for it. I still think it's worth seeing. It's not as good as it could have been, but it's not horrible either. It's a mixed bag. Me and Tony are basically on the same page.
Excellent. David, all of this talk, I literally can't remember where you wound up here. So lay it on me.
No, yeah, I still don't like it. I'm definitely a completion. I would have probably enjoyed this film a lot better if I were like watching it on Netflix in a couple of months after, binging the other films and just like sliding it in there and maybe following it up with Predators, which I'm going to do as like a palate cleanser. I'm going to watch Predators now. There were lots of stuff. There was lots of stuff to love in it. Action, the special effects, the friendly banter that among men, which is some of it was trite, but it was just generally fun. I could have done without the kid, the Wesley Crusher of the film, and without the Hulk dogs. And I could have done without Iron Man showing up at the end. But beyond that, it was. There are worse ways to spend a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon. And like I said, I had plenty of beer and popcorn, so it kind of like eased the thing. I hope that they followed up with other films. I hope they don't wait another 8 to 10 or 20 years or whatever before they to do another one, because I'd like to see somebody that takes science fiction a little more seriously, write a screenplay for one of these films and like do it justice, instead of all of these kind of like the whole Robert Rodriguez Shane Black type of screenwriting is over the top and kind of cheesy, not particularly well rooted in realism. And one of the reasons that I like Predator 2 is there's over the top stuff, but the story and the characters feel a little more rooted in a real world with real issues, even though it was, kind of a fantasy version of 1997. So yeah, I would cautiously say that if you're a fan of the franchise, to go see it, but go in with your expectations lowered, have a good time, see the Predator fuck shit up, and then hope that soon somebody gets this right, because it should be easy to make a badass Predator film. And I just don't understand why we can't get back to what was so golden about the first film. It was stripped down and simple, and people overcomplicate the story entirely too much. But this is the same kind of thing that we see. Like, if we go back to what Drew said last week about the first film, these, I think, in essence, should be slasher films. The second Predator 2, is also still kind of a slasher film, just set in an urban environment. In moving away from that aesthetic, from that plot frame, that the plot device that frames the story, I think is part of the problem with this one. They're just trying to do too much, and they're not sure what kind of film they're making, as we said. That's the problem. So I wouldn't buy the Blu-ray, but it's not a bad film to every couple of years when you do your retrospective to watch.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so funny because if you were to digitize this show and just run our words through it and see movies that I've been ridiculously defensive or defending of that were probably truly terrible, and movies that are probably pretty good that I'm pretty hard on, I think there are probably reasons why, and a lot of it has to do with the the privilege of the film to begin with. The fact that this kind of a super expensive movie starts out like way, way, way ahead of some like minor film from Italy that we might talk about. But there are parts here that I like. There are parts here that, as I said in the beginning, just really annoyed me. So but I would never not see it. Of course I would go see it. It's a reboot of the Predator. It's culturally, it's important right now. That sounds strange to say, but it's totally true. So, I would watch it. I just, I didn't really like the choices being made. So, so if you take the four of us, I'm the only one I come out like way to one side. David's a little closer here, and then you guys had a good time. So I'm dying to know, and my endorsements are going to have to do a lot with some of the stuff we brought up in this show. Dying to know what you guys would like to endorse this week. And by endorsements, I'm talking about things that you've been reading or watching that you would like to share with the audience as they're going out, that they should maybe take a look at this week. So, and that includes like stuff that's going on. So, Tony, you can start. Do you have anything to endorse?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have a little bit of radio silence for the next couple weeks because I'm gonna be at Fantastic Fest. I hope to endorse many things coming from it. I'm actually going to be speaking to some directors of different films. Some of that may turn up here or on horrormovies.net or some venue out there.
Your credentials are Castle of Horror credentials. I mean, you're
I'm
representing
there representing the podcast, and I'll be talking to people. I doubt I get, we're not huge, so I doubt I get red carpet interview with Jamie Lee Curtis because she's going to be hosting at least a Q&A. Halloween's the opening night movie, so I'm pretty stoked about that. There's evidently a crazy party that I don't have a costume to anyway, but there's a lot of genre film represented at Fantastic Fest. I usually end up seeing 30 something to 40 movies at least within the space of 8 to 9 days. So, which is crazy to most people. That, seeing 40 movies in a year is probably, a lot for a lot of people. But so usually if you've been following the show for a while, you get to hear me talk about this movie's coming out. This movie, there's a movie that I can't talk about yet, but I'll talk about it when it comes. And anytime something ends up on video on demand, you'll hear about it. So I look forward to sharing a lot of that stuff with everyone throughout. And I'll at least probably share it on our Facebook page and on Twitter, etc., because that's the way to do things these days. But that's that's coming up, and that's the 20th through the 27th. So after that you'll be hearing about, or a lot of that stuff. I mean, in the years past, I've recommended a bunch of movies. We interviewed, director of Haunters, and he's a super cool guy. We still need to have him on to talk about movies.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So super good point.
Yeah, John was great. So, yeah, that, and I gotta say, I blazed through while I was working on other stuff. I had the new season of Iron Fist, and I have to say, please, oh please, just can I watch Daughters of the Dragon? Because anytime Colleen Wing and Misty Knight are on screen, that show is awesome. And then Danny Bland comes on, and I just want Daughters of the Dragon. Yeah. So watch the new season for them, because the setup, I think, is really cool, and I hope that happens. Please, oh please, oh please, can we get that? Because I want that something fierce. The new season's better. The choreography is really good, actually, in the new season.
I heard they got the fight choreographer from Black Panther for this season, because they
it shows
really step it up.
That stuff is good. Like when they're fighting, stuff is really cool. Although I realized that as represented in the show, his true superpower is straight out of Art of Fighting. So anytime he does the move that he just seems, I guess that's what you do when you have this stupid fist, is can be summed up as down, forward, punch. So
I haven't seen the new
Thanks
season.
for showing the Iron Fist how to make a power wave.
I haven't seen the new season, but he seemed a lot better in his cameo episode in Luke Cage.
Sure,
so
I mean, it's better, but yeah, I mean, the fight choreography is way better and cooler. But like I said, man, when Wing and Knight are on screen, it's great, and the other stuff is okay. But I just want that show to come out, because that's also, I like the comic a lot too. So, and Jason, you've written some of that too, right?
To my knowledge, I wrote the last comic that starred Colleen Wing.
There you go.
I don't think she's been back in the comics since then, which is weird. So it's very possible that I did such a profoundly disturbing job with that it killed the character in the comics forever.
Well, let's hope not. But anyway, you should watch her stuff in this. It's really, really good.
Yeah. I literally think that was the last Colleen Wing Misty Knight comic that Marvel did, was Daughters of the Shadow, which was a sequel to the Daughters of the Dragon stuff that they had in the past. So anyway, yeah, awesome. Okay, so basically you're endorsing Colleen Wing. That's great.
Misty Knight as well.
Yes.
Anyway,
Wing,
that
and
Dragon, Fantastic Fest, and if anybody's out there who is in Austin or coming into Austin during that time, there's also a really cool thing they're doing this year for Fantastic Fest, where there's a midnight movie pass, which Jason, I'm sure if you were here, you'd probably buy into. It's like $100, get the $99, get you a midnight movie per night, basically.
Holy mackerel.
And so you're guaranteed to see something crazy and cool, and it may not even show up in the States anytime soon, if ever. And I think that's kind of a neat, kind of a cool way to do things. I like that badge. That's kind of cool. If this wasn't my staycation where I was also doing press, if I didn't have time, I would definitely buy that badge, because I think that's pretty rad.
That's cool. Awesome. All right. Drew, what about you? What do you got to endorse?
Well, I hate to do this 2 weeks in a row, but I'm actually going to have to make a call out for our listeners, specific groups of our listeners for help. I'm having a very odd week, good. So my wife has recently joined a band called Brand New Key. They're a bluegrass band, and she was having practice with them. And when they were wrapping up, Jack, the lead singer, was like, "So your husband's up for that award, huh?"
Oh,
and
right.
she was like, "What award?" And she's like, best of Austin comic book creator. And she's like, "I don't know." And she's like, "No, he totally is. Look at the new issue of the Chronicle." And they showed it to her, and so I've been walking around for several days. So the Austin Chronicle is a local newspaper here in Austin, and every year they have a best of Austin, and it has, music venues and stores, but it also has local people. And in the art section, one of the options is comic book creator. And I don't know how I got in there, because like it's a write-in thing, and I don't go out for this kind of stuff. I just assume that I am so beneath everybody's radar that, like, I just don't think it's so beyond my sphere of whatever I think. That, so the fact that when Jamie came home and she told me that I was in this, I literally welled up and cried, because like I don't think that I just don't think of myself getting in things like this. And my jaw hit the floor, and my jaw has been dragging around on the floor ever since then. So I am up against the guy that writes the Venom comic book. So I feel like that is stiff competition. Listeners, go to us, particularly those of you who are in Texas or used to live in Texas, particularly those of you who used to live in Austin. Go on the website, go to austinchronicle.com and vote for me, because I probably am going to need every bit of help that I can get to win this. And I'm not gonna lie, like, even though I think it's a long shot, like I think I'm a dark horse candidate, I am, and I'm gobsmacked that I even got in as a finalist. I'm just completely, that's crazy to me. Please go and vote for me. Like I need all the help I can get, and I'm still feel like in a state of shock about it, to be honest. Like I feel good shock, but I feel like I'm in shock nonetheless. But it's a self-serving endorsement for the second week in a row, and I apologize for that. But
it's not your second week talking about this. This is brand new. So
No,
yeah, but I mean, the cool thing is, you might be in shock, but it is an opportunity for your readers to, first of all, that they nominated you already, and then it's an opportunity for your readers to go out there and vote. And how long do they have to vote? How long? I mean,
they have until October 1st.
October 1. All right.
It's
so
literally
yes.
a minute of your time. It takes almost no time to do. And if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy my comics, if you just think I'm funny, I whatever, just please go vote, because like I can't stress how much this actually means to me. So the fact that I don't know who y'all were who wrote my name in for this, but thank you, because it just means a lot to me. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Lovely, though. I think that's a great opportunity for the listeners to impact directly the lives of those of us on the show. I think it's wonderful that you're nominated. I think people should vote, and I mean, wish you all the best. It's well deserved. David, what do you got to endorse for us this week?
So not a whole lot, but I would recommend a really cool book called Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. She is a Hugo Award-winning now debut author, and this is the first book in a series of hers called The Sixth World. That is like a post-apocalyptic kind of dark fantasy series that uses Navajo legends. She is part African American and part indigenous Native American. She's married to like a Navajo guy. She's a pretty great writer. And this book centers on a Navajo character, a Diné character called Maggie Hosky. And she is a monster hunter, and it's just really, really fantastic with great monsters from indigenous lore, mainly Navajo. And the first book is really, really exciting, and I'm excited to read other books in the series as well as they come out. So Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse would be my major endorsement. And then for those listeners who speak Spanish or can read in Spanish, there is a special edition of the magazine The Dark, which publishes like dark fantasy and horror short stories. I think the website might just be thedark.com or the dark magazine or whatever. And the special number that came out this month for Latinx Heritage Month is entirely in Spanish, and it features 2 translations that I did of stories that had already been published in English. I translated them into Spanish, great horror stories, and a couple of stories by Mexican authors, friends of mine from Mexico, who do a really, really fantastic job. So if anybody listening is a reader of Spanish, or just wants to check out really, really good horror stories in general, The Dark is a great source for those kinds of stories. I'm looking to see right now what so it's thedarkmagazine.com. thedarkmagazine.com. Really, really fantastic stories that they put out, and I loved translating the 2 that they hired me to translate, and they have got lots and lots of other good stuff. So if you're looking for great dark fantasy or horror, it's a place I recommend you go. And that's it.
Fantastic. So my endorsement this week is an event and an article. So I have been super duper busy. I haven't gotten a chance to do very much reading. So I'm still working on the Woodward book. I've it's been sad because I've been trying to get this. I have a book due to the publisher on October 1st, and I am racing against the clock. But 2 things. First of all, at Vox this week, there was a wonderful article about the idea of bad faith arguments that people used against movies before they come out. In this case, it was about the First Man, which is the new movie with Ryan Gosling where he plays Neil Armstrong. There's been a tempest in a teapot from a lot of people who haven't seen the movie, who believe that because it doesn't include the planting of the American flag, that maybe the movie is anti-American. The people who are involved in the movie go, that's crazy talk. We got flags everywhere. It's whatever. It's a dumb conversation. But this article in Vox was about, that's dumb, but it happens all the time, where a movie's coming out, some crazy person gets it in their idea that the movie has this to say, that's pro-Democrat or anti-Democrat, or going to piss off the Republicans, or that's going to tick off, this religious group or that religious group, and the people haven't even seen the movie yet. And so it's called The First Man Controversy is grounded in partisanship, not patriotism. It's time for bad faith hysteria about unseen movies to stop, by Alyssa Wilkinson. It's a very interesting article where she basically is saying, look, art is art, and we need to be honest about it, and that includes not trashing a movie deliberately when you haven't seen it. And I thought that was really strong. So cool article. Check that out. Also, if you're in Dallas, I and Adam Foshko are going to be showing Gidget on the 22nd, Saturday at 6 p.m. at Richardson for another Tiki Time at the Alamo Drafthouse, this time in Dallas, Texas. So, or in Richardson, technically, which is North Dallas. So be there if you're anywhere in the DFW area. I would love to see you. We're going to watch one of the coolest films of all time that actually launched the surf movement in the United States. Just deeply, deeply important culturally, and a cool movie with Cliff Robertson in one of his most amazing roles. Cliff Robertson plays the Big Kahuna. If you've heard that term 1,000 times, this is the movie where that comes from. So yes, Alamo Drafthouse, Gidget, Saturday, be there. That's all I got. If you are just joining us, this is what the show is like every week. I am so thankful that you guys could be on. I'm so thankful that we didn't try to kill one another because we had such differences about the movie. If you're listening and you have something to say, leave us a review. Come to the Facebook page and engage with us, and tell me that I'm completely full of it and completely wrong, and I will totally take that. And I am so thankful that you guys could be on. Thank you, everybody. I'll talk to you next week or whenever we're back. Very soon.
Adios.
Good night, everybody.
Adios.
Night.